Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and here I am making a broken teapot fairy house. I'm using a gel super glue to kind of reassemble the pieces of this was my favorite teapot, and I dropped it and it broke and I was devastated, but I was like, hey, picked up all the pieces and I was like, perfect opportunity to make a teapot fairy house. So it took a little bit of puzzle piecing things together, being very careful because these are quite sharp edges. I left out the pieces that were a little too like crumbly, and you can see I left some openings and stuff because I knew I wanted to incorporate elements of like an incense burner. I'm using Sculpey 3 here because it is very, very soft. Now, I don't recommend Sculpey 3 for anything structural, but for decorative pieces, I think it works great. Like, it's kind of superficial decorative stuff. And I am just squishing it right through a strainer. No, I mean, it is a strainer, but it's like, yeah, just, I don't know what it's called. I put loose leaf tea in it for making tea, like a tea ball. Is that what they're called? I don't know. And then just a craft knife to kind of scrape that off, and it gives an interesting effect, different from just the regular moss texture that I usually do, for those of y'all who've seen some of my other videos. Here I'm using white or translucent, I can't remember. I literally just looked at it, but liquid Sculpey. Can I see? No, I think it dries like clearish white. It's not like truly translucent, but that's okay. I'm using it as a binding agent because this ceramic is really, it's quite slick. And I'm just using an awl tool. There will be links down in the video description to all the different tools and materials that I'm using here, as well as a link to some of my favorite tools and materials, and anything that you buy through those, our company gets a small percentage, and that really helps us out. So here I have a nice marbling of some Primo and Sculpey 3, and of course I go off screen. But I just shaped it out, kind of lettuced it up a little bit, rolled it flat up against my palm to give it some texture, and now I'm using a porcupine quill to put in a little bit of veining. Just having fun with it. I'm not making any kind of particularly, this is a specific species of plant leaf. It's just a leaf-ish, and just sculpting around a little bit more of that liquid Sculpey and just setting that into place. And then I really do enjoy using ball tools for blending and shaping and sculpting and stuff. They're worth their weight in gold for sure. And just breaking off a little bit more of, that's the green pearl, like the bright green, I think is what it's called. And I'm using string bean here, are the two colors that I'm using, and just a little wire brush. And it's blurry, but you get the idea of just stipling the wire brush. You can experiment with changing the way that the little brush bristles, the wires, are laying to get different effects, because I find the more I press with it, the more it kind of just splays out and mushes differently. But that gives us a pretty nice effect. And then I'm just going to come in with my porcupine quill tip and clean these crumblies out of the brush tip, because I do like to use them, in the sculpture. But that's basically, y'all, that's how I go about making all of my moss. The gemstones that I'm using to decorate this are random odds and ends and beads that I actually assemble them before I start sculpting. That way, as it's almost like throwing together an ingredients list before starting a recipe. Just be like, these are what I have to choose from, so let's make something with it. And it helps focus me in, because I didn't really go in with a plan on this one. But I did want to make sure that they are all either natural or color enhanced gemstones. Like, I've got some quartz crystal that has like the angel auras on it and different stuff, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything that was resin or acrylic or plastic or something that would melt and discolor, or let off weird fumes, while baking. Some raw pyrite, compliments of my friend Jim. I don't even know if he remembers sending me those, but it was like, gosh, probably almost a year and a half ago, but I've been hoarding them because they're so pretty. But they just, I don't know, they're so perfect. I just love pyrite. adding in a little bit more moss. And just, I like the porcupine quill because it's flexible. And it has more give to it than, the stones and things that I work with. So I don't ever have to really, worry about messing up my stones at all. Now I'm coming through with a translucent clay. This is Sculpey, I think, still. And I'm just shaping out some little mushroom caps using the porcupine quill. You could use whatever you have on hand to give it some texture, and then making a little spot for the stem to slide into with a ball tool. And I've sculpted just a bunch of these, and I baked them at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. I wanted to make sure that they weren't going to burn on me, but I did want them nice and baked. That way I could then smursh, just get them on in there. And then add a little, like, the botanist in me is like, none of this is real. Like, this is not accurate representation of the species of mushroom. And the artist in me is like, who cares? It's pretty. So, yeah, you could emulate specific, like, morels would be so cute, or like fly agaric, like just different, species of mushrooms and stuff. But sometimes I just like sculpting generic mushrooms and being like, they're fantasy breed, no particular. Yeah, can't really see past my hand, but I'm just going through, and to get the mushrooms to stick, I will roll like a little pea-sized ball of the green clay, or whatever base color of clay I'd be using, because these techniques, you can use them on so much more than just fairy houses, or, anything. Your imagination's, going to take you so many different places. I'm really excited to see what y'all do with these techniques here. But, and just stipling it with a porcupine quill to get it to kind of blend into the rest of the project. So here I'm taking another little ball and just rolling it and bloop, filling in all the little spots. Like I try to start with the big pieces and then fill in with gradually more finer and finer detail. So I'm coming in underneath the leaf, just dropping a little glob, little pea-sized ball of clay, and then taking one of our baked mushrooms and smoosh, just getting that in there. This piece is designed to be delicate. Like, it is not utilitarian at all. I mean, clearly there's holes all through the tea kettle, but I still wanted it to be just as secure as possible. So I put this in the oven and baked it for about 15 minutes. And then I don't show it in the video, but I added like an edging of the translucent polymer clay. So now I'm building up a base to do the landscaping, for lack of a better term, around the fairy house. And I'm using Sculpey 3, again, because it's very soft and easy to work with. And for something that is just going to be sitting on a shelf or in a garden, I've found Sculpey 3 holds up perfectly well, though I don't prefer to use it in my jewelry, because if you're like wearing it in like a long pendant or something and it's getting like whacked around, it doesn't hold up quite as well as what some of the other brands or like Primo Sculpey or something would. But for something like this, I'm pretty happy with it. But again, like always, please use your own artistic discretion to decide what materials you do and don't like. So just because I'm doing it away doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. And these are actually some little mushrooms for those of y'all who follow along with my work. My burnt fairy house that I have had out in my garden for probably the past 2 years. I decided to scavenge the mushrooms off of that one because the chickens hid the cap to it, and it was time for these to be repurposed. So I was really excited to take something old and add it into something new. Also, future Vaughn to past Vaughn, I'm really liking how you did the editing on this. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm doing the voiceover like 4 days after I did the initial video editing. So I've slept since then, so I don't really remember what I was doing. So just making some cute little clay spirals. You can see I did a jump here in the editing. So I just kind of squished in some quartz crystal flowers. I've got a tumbled tiger's eye, some brass leaf components for use in jewelry, and just used more of the green blends of clay to kind of smush and secure everything in. And you can get a better look here. I also have some kyanite got added in there. Some more little mushrooms, just a quartz crystal. That the video didn't catch it very well, but it does have an aurora, an angel aura on there. Trying to get a little bit more texturing in, and then to add more three-dimensional like filler plants and to add more texture, I took some moss and just rolled it up as if I were doing the center of a polymer clay rose, and then just got it on in there. There's also some like old lampwork beads. Like, I love projects like this because it gives me an opportunity to really utilize odds and ends that I have just been hoarding. That it's like I love it so much that I never use it. And so getting to put it into a fairy house, and especially to have gotten to send this one off to, a longtime fan and supporter and patron, and someone who I hope I get to meet them one day because I do consider them a friend, though, we've never like spoken in person. But I was really happy to get to put these parts of me into this fairy house. So, Danielle, if you're watching this, give yourself a hug from me. And just more magic happening in the details, hopefully. Adding some little more squiggly, like, I just roll out like a snake of polymer clay and then curl the ends down like a tentacle, layer some moss, and then squishing the mushroom caps into it. And I did that for both the handle and the spout. And then using more liquid polymer clay, I wanted to decorate around the openings, to kind of peer inside. And so just tearing off bits of the moss. So much of this is I'm using probably like maybe 3 or 4 techniques entirely. Like there's, squishing the clay through a strainer, making moss, making snakes, and making mushrooms. And beyond that, it's just letting the natural gemstones just be cute on their own. And the tea kettle, I feel like, is the one who got the short end of the stick on this. They're doing all the hard work. But yeah, I really enjoyed making this, and I always forget to add the liquid polymer clay, but it makes such a big difference in helping the clay to stick, not just before baking, but the longevity of the piece is extended so much, I feel, by using the liquid clay. In a perfect world, I would have scuffed it up a bit with the Dremel tool, but ain't nobody got time for that. So that is that. I'm doing a bit of painting here, but future past Vaughn will be talking to you about that in a moment. So y'all, this is how it came out. I'm pretty pleased with it, actually. I didn't think ahead as much, and so it's a little more difficult to get the lid off. So I just come in kind of underneath everything and lift out that way. But I'm going to set that off to the side because the next step is probably going to be the hardest part, and that is, it is time to dislodge it from the rest of the tile. So I'm coming through just with a flat sculpting tool, and I'm counting on actually some breakage of the little details around the bottom. But I just want to get this slid under there. There we are. Because if we can start just like that, if we can just dislodge most of it, then it will kind of pull itself up and off. And there we are. And that's how the bottom came out. These are all the sides. I really enjoyed getting to do the moss and stuff all the way around. Tops of these mushrooms burnt, so I actually painted them with a black acrylic and then let that dry, and then went over it with a layer of this folk art color shift. And that's the same color that I used on the other mushrooms, but I really love the effect that it got. So pretty pleased with it. So now it's time, let's light some incense, get that put into the pot, and see how the smoke comes out. So here I have put into the teapot some resin crystals that have a little tea light set in the bottom. I'll actually be doing a separate tutorial for how to make your own of these. But I'm just kind of setting those in there. in a couple of different color schemes. And then I have here a cone incense in an old, like, burnt out tea light, like the little metal tin. And I'm just gonna settle that, boop, right in there, plop. And then let's put the lid on. To see if hopefully the smoke travels out the top at all. Well, it's all coming out the sides, that's fine. We could just as easily to put a stick incense down the spout. Now, this is not a sponsored post or anything. I just really like this product because for the longest time, I didn't really use stick or cone incense as much because they all kind of smelled the same, just like burning binding agent. But I get all of my incense from the Enchanted Oak. My favorite scent is Clovender. The price is right, like for sure. And the website is theenchantedoak.mi.com. If you can see that. But this lady has amazing products. And each incense that I've ever gotten from her has its own unique smell. They stay lit fantastically. And it's really nice. Like, I like it. So I thought I would share that with you guys. And now let's get these lights turned off so that we can get a better look, maybe, at our teapot. Because it's still, it's like mid-afternoon, but it's autumn. And it's a nice overcast day. So here we can get a nice perspective. Not as many effects with the smoke coming out as I had initially envisioned, but I think we've made up for that with the glowing, flickering crystals on the inside. So that's pretty neat. But if you guys have any questions, comments, or ideas, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any requests for future tutorials, I'd love to hear those as well. And if you enjoy my tutorials and would like to support the channel beyond just being here hanging out with me, there's links to all my social media and Patreon and things down below. So please check those out. But man, I really like this fairy house. And I don't even know if I could call it a fairy house. There's no door on it. So, but it's, either way, I like it. Danielle, if you're watching this, I hope you like it. I really loved making this for you. So, there we are. Until next time, guys, happy crafting. Bye.